Davenport, you may not know this, but I called a couple of your team leaders, and I was just like, describe to me Tanner Davenport's leadership.
Okay.
And they said, Voxer,
okay,
Snapchat emojis, crying emojis, and old people emojis, faces. Tell me where you got that inspiration from.
So, crying emojis, old people emojis.
Voxer. So
I can relate to Voxer. I don't know. I think some people call Matt a grandpa, and I hop on that bandwagon, I guess. So maybe that's why. So, Voxer. Did you use Voxer when? I
didn't use Voxer.
Okay. So.
I mean, I've used Voxer before, so I'm somewhat familiar with, like, we'll say the 2019 version.
Okay. I would consider it a handicap walkie-talkie. So.
Okay.
So, just to put in perspective, we were the only team that really used it in the office. Like, a lot of other team leaders didn't like it at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, my thing with Voxer is I have to think about things like 24/7, and usually when I'm thinking of things not on the door or not thinking about the doors, then I'm doing better on the doors. So Voxer was the way to kind of not escape reality, but escape the doors and just focus on my guys and tell fun stories, and then inevitably, like, we all sold better. So everyone loved it though too, because no one knew about it until I started using it, and then everyone was just super hyped the entire time, and it kind of took it out of control a little bit at some points, but you could rally the troops back in, and it was okay.
I think getting out of control's a little bit and a lot of bit of fun.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to try to get across a little bit in this interview is Davenport did lots of amazing things, did over $300,000 in personal revenue. What was your best month? Like $125K in July?
It's like 100, I think it was like 110, 115.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's in real. And then you had, was it an 11K day? So what was most impressive beyond, like, the fact that you led from the front was the fact that you had everybody sign on for the next summer in one day in July.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun, and that's amazing. And I've been doing this for years, and, like, anyone that does door-to-door knows what it's like when you're working with leadership and year 2, 3, or whatever's coming around, and they're trying to get you to come back from next year. Like, there's always, like, do I really want to do this again? And I think in July, not everybody wants to come back and do door-to-door again, right? And the fact that you guys are able to give offers to everyone and get everybody to sign back on in one day, to me, just absolutely, like, blew my mind. And, like, kind of over the course of this interview, I just kind of wanted to understand, like, what went into such a phenomenal culture. And as I called your guys, they loved you and they had tons of fun with you, but that was the key. Like, they had a lot of fun with you, and they trusted your leadership, and they trusted your training. And I think for a job that's this challenging, having fun is going to be key to any culture that's going to get people to want to come back and keep doing this again. And so as you were kind of planning out your summer, I know you had in your first creation, you wanted to have fun. How did you intentionally make that happen?
So I don't know, there's a lot of ways. Well, first off too, like with signing everybody at the beginning, I think I really realized how big of a team effort it is. Not just like with the members of the team, because if it's in their best interest, then obviously I feel good about signing them back on, but also like working with Matt and like you and Tanner. I didn't think, usually there's like a feeling when it comes to the end of the summer where it's like, okay, like now we're switching to signing on. Matt and I both focused on throughout the entire summer, like leading up to signing them on. Basically we were beginning with the end in mind, not like just going to all chaos when it was time to sign people and be like, okay, like what do we need to do to fix people?
Yeah.
So I think with that, having fun was like, I would say that's the biggest thing that came down to me signing everybody as well in one day, because it was just already ingrained in their minds that they wanted to come back. Like even people that didn't do poorly, people that did really good, and people that didn't do as good as they wanted to go and do, it didn't really matter to them because they understood that that was part of the process, and the fact that they were able to make money and a decent amount of it plus have fun at the same time, it was a no-brainer for them coming back, like in their eyes, not in my eyes. So, well,
I think that says a lot about your culture, because whether anybody admits it or not, like everybody has a handful of reps that didn't perform as well as they would like. In my experience, it's been way easier to sign reps that have just sold really, really well. Like it's just a lot easier. It makes a lot of sense for them to come back. But what I thought was really impressive was not only did you get those guys, but yeah, like you had a handful of reps that did struggle over the course of the summer, but they were nipping at the bit to come back and do it again. So I guess I think what I want to make unique to this interview is like, how did you get those reps to have such a good experience that they would want to come back and do it again?
So actually, like right before that too. So what you and Tim talked about as well too is that you're doing your job right if you're having to fire people rather than having people want to leave, because at that point they're so tied to the culture and the environment that they just want to stay no matter what. And sometimes with those people, if it's not in their best interest, they go home. But in this case where they were still making money as well too, and they weren't doing as good as they wanted to go and do, I think like the biggest thing that I can think of as well too is just setting very, very clear expectations with them at the beginning of the summer of what to expect. Because ultimately for people that do really good, if you sell better, you're going to be better. You're going to have more fun. Like that's just like a fact I've learned through the summer.
Yeah.
So for people that aren't doing as good as well, like if they know those expectations, you're meeting with them frequently, you're following up with them, you're knocking with them, you're training with them, you're doing what they need to do to succeed. If they know that they've been giving everything and it's on them, if you make it a very like low pressure situation like Voxer and you're having fun with the guys on the doors, it doesn't really become like hard for them to have fun anymore. They know what's expected of them. They know that they're giving their all. And at the end of the day, if you set expectation that that's all that can happen and that's all they need to worry about is the controllables, then they're just going to have fun and they're going to sell anyways. That's kind of, I guess, what I experienced with that too.
Yeah.
From the high end and the low end, which is good. So it's both.
You were both, man. And
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to work with you for years now. And I think one of the things I found very impressive was, I don't care who you are, I think every rep at some point will struggle a little bit in July and August. And for you, you have burned out in the past.
Yeah.
You have.
Unfortunately.
Pretty
badly as well.
You may not be the only one.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I remember speaking with you before the summer, like, what do you want to do differently? And like, I don't want to burn out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to accelerate. And like you did, man.
Mm-hmm.
Your July was insane. If we didn't do our Hawaii retreat so early, I think you would have had another record-breaking month too.
Yeah, hopefully.
But like what I saw was awesome is like you consistently led from the front in July and August, whatever objections people are struggling with, whether switchovers, knocked in area, whatever, like you were the example of how to overcome that. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that was really impressive to me was you guys, I think, got kicked out in our nation tournament about, I think I think it was about the third round and you guys lasted.
The first time around? Like the first
time around.
Yeah, I think we're like, third round, we got knocked out.
And what happened with every team, I think, except yours, is after the round, like, everyone their sales dropped for a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Your team actually started to accelerate and sell really, really well, even though, like, there was no Brazil trip hanging at the end of that.
Yeah.
What did you do?
So, yeah, which was actually interesting. So when we did PR and we actually did, I think we actually PR'd like on top of that. Not only did we do better than the time before, but we PR'd. Mm-hmm. It like the full transparency of it is all the guys, like there was no difference from the day, like that Saturday that we got kicked out to like that Monday as well. Because ultimately, like selling and working hard, like the byproduct was Brazil, hopefully, right? Yeah. And if not, then it doesn't really matter. So if anything, my guys were really confused when people did burn out in general and also when they got kicked out of the competition, because it was just so ingrained in their mind that the success was based on like them working hard, and whether they're in the Brazil trip or not, like that doesn't stop you from working hard and having fun. So, but it was, we would set that in like in that motion and those expectations beforehand, because a lot of teams probably did it during the actual competition and right before they got kicked out, they're like, by the way, like let's keep going afterwards. Like let's just not let this hinder us. At that point, sometimes it's too late. So the whole thing was before the trip started, like, or the competition started. We're just like, whatever happens, happens. Like, let's all go and PR and do our best. And like, whatever happens. Let's just focus on the controllables.
Yeah.
So that was it.
I love focusing on what you can control and what you can't control. Mm-hmm. And I guess kind of moving forward, having worked with a team like that, you've got some team leaders coming back with you this year. Mm-hmm. Could you describe your ideal candidate? Like what kind
avatar?
Of your avatar? What is your ideal person that you'd like to work with this upcoming year? Who are you trying to find when you recruit?
So, my big thing. So I realize when recruiting too, like having an avatar is extremely important. But I think my first 2 years, I was looking for like the soup. Hear me out. I was looking for the very, very only integrable person. Like hard work was something that was acquired for me. So I was like, oh, it can be acquired for other people too. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize until like my second year, like how hard it actually was like to stop being a lazy bum. Cause like when July and August came, I would just burnt because I was just complacent in my mind.
Yeah.
So my ideal avatar is someone who's extremely teachable. because if they're teachable, then whether it's, making and keeping commitments, hard work, whatever it may be, like it's all able to be learned. So someone who's teachable, and the other thing besides that, someone who's willing to make and keep commitments. Because I think having like integrity is a byproduct of that. If they're able to do what they say, then they're going to be integritous with whatever they do. So someone who's teachable, ideally who's a really, really hard worker, but is willing to start to work hard, because a lot of people haven't done anything hard till this point in their life. And then 2 is just someone who's willing to make and keep commitments as well. That's the biggest thing that I look for with the people that I hire, because I realize it's like the most important from what I've experienced.
I'm excited to talk about commitments here in a second.
Yes.
And then the hard work aspect of it too, like it is really important. So, if anybody's ever heard me on an interview, like I don't think selling pest control itself is hard. Like
the act of it is not hard.
The act of it's not hard. Like you're on the doors, where we're going, like demand's super high, bugs are super bad. Most people have a pest control company. It's just a matter of why they should use ours. I mean, we have a litany of reasons of why people should switch over, right? Like it's the mental and the emotional aspect of dealing with that kind of rejection. And so would you mind describe the kind of hard people can expect in the summer?
So first off with that, like going for your story, because I remember you always told me like, well, you are a hard worker in general too, but also that's what you said had to take place over your sales skills. Because at the beginning, you told me that like you worked harder than everybody, but you weren't like the most talented ever.
Yeah.
In my mind, I thought of like my first 2 years, I thought of that as an excuse for me to not have to work as hard, because like I had sales skills that I just feel like I could just talk to people and I could sell pretty easily. So with that said,
which is true, you do have some very awesome natural talent.
Well, now I have like hard work to back it up too, because like if you have leaders like you that show the example too, you realize that it's actually doable no matter like what avenue you're in. You're welcome.
I think everybody looks at me and think anything's possible.
Well, it's true, yeah, exactly. That's the goal anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's different to answer that question now, because I think hard's relative. Like after you end each summer, you realize that like one, your capacity to do hard things improves, but you also realize that like hard has a different definition. So for me, my first year, if I was coming into Moxie, what I experienced as hard was more of just like mental draining, like being able to like stay consistent and stay positive throughout the day as well. Another hard that I feel like I face now is like being able to prioritize things. So if like reps have problems, obviously I want to help them as much as I can, because I want like them having a good summer is a lot up to me their first year, because they don't really know everything.
Absolutely.
So my thing for hard people looking to come into the summer is, one, be ready to do the hardest thing you're going to do as well too, but be ready to be mentally like disciplined if you want to finish and do really, really good for the summer, which basically means have extremely good goals, have extremely good commitments as well too, and be prepared to follow through on them, and be prepared that if you don't follow through on them, that it's not going to go the way that you expect. So don't wait until the summer to try to start making and keeping commitments, because it's not going to work.
I agree. I think making and keeping commitments is like the most crucial thing to getting prepared for this job. The most crucial. And for you as well, like we talked about kind of keeping your mindset like really positive and forward looking. It's fun working with different people, because people think different ways. Like my brain's not super analytical, and yours is, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like over the course of the summer, when you were struggling or when things were hard, like over the years, my advice to you is like, dude, just turn off your brain, man. Just turn off your brain and go to work.
Tried so hard, it does not work.
And well, a lot of people are like overthinkers, man. And so for you, like when you're on the doors, and let's just say we'll call it a rough afternoon of rejection. How do you keep moving forward? Because there's several times over the course of the summer where I know you're knocking with reps, crazy stuff happened where people getting tossed out of neighborhoods, and like as a leader, it's easy to justify being like, yeah, like I'm not going to sell well today because here's my 100 things that have gone wrong that I need to deal with.
Yeah.
And for you, you did have the same 100 things that every leader deals with over the summer, but you found a way to consistently refocus and go produce on the doors.
So the number one thing that I learned from Tim and like the director of sales meetings beforehand is like the preparation, like basically writing out everything that could possibly go wrong, even if it seems far-fetched or not. Because usually when you get in the summer, you realize that things that are far-fetched aren't really far-fetched. Like it happens all the time. Yeah. So preparing that way, and not only preparing like what could happen, but how you're going to respond to it as well. If you don't have to think about what happens and you just go and do it because you're already you were already dedicated to finding out the answer before the summer started, there's no emotional like energy that you need to put into the decision. You already know what to do, right? Yeah. The biggest thing that I found though with that is if I didn't do that and I had to be caught on the spot, it's super easy to become complacent or to say, I'm I'll go talk to this rep for a couple hours. I'll still be on the doors by like 5, but like if people ask why I didn't sell the best today too, it's just because I had other things going on. Like I guarantee there's times where like Matt, Charlie, Evan, all these people had really, really good days, and behind the scenes, like even last year, like Charlie had so many things going on his PR day of like 10, and he was on the doors from 6 to 9, and no one knew that. But he didn't matter for him. Like it didn't matter to him. Like whether he was on the doors at 6, he did everything that he needed to do before 6. Like that was all required because he prepared for that, and he just still went and performed as well. So like with that said, preparing before the summer, not only what could happen, but how you're going to respond over to it. And my unique, I guess you can say, mindset is like I had to focus on very small things like every 20 to 30 minutes, or I'd get distracted and ultimately like overthink things and then become complacent or discouraged. So I use Voxer and my team to focus on their problems, to focus on helping them. So in turn, it just like made me distracted on the doors, and I would like, that's how I sold better, was just not thinking about the doors and letting my muscle memory go into place. So the first 2 weeks, I wouldn't recommend doing that because you're learning. But like after that, once you have like the things down, like whatever you can do to just like stay positive and stay happy, you'll produce the best as well too. Mine was thinking about other people's problems, as weird as that sounds.
Hey, so, it worked.
Yeah, as long as it works.
Weird works, man.
Yeah.
And I liked how you brought up Charlie. And I think what's really fun for me is like when you work with so many like high producing people, like that source of inspiration, like you don't have to look super far off to find people around you doing like miraculously things, man. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of crazy, awesome things that were going on in our DC offices this summer.
Yeah.
Like a lot of really good ones.
Yeah.
And my question for you is, outside of sales, man, like what were some of your favorite memories you had of this past summer?
Like off the doors, basically?
Off the doors, yeah.
So one thing Matt and I did a lot, and Matt had to hold me accountable to it as well, is just doing basically something every weekend, because everyone's tired, everybody wants to nap. So like doing anything made a really big difference for me, because it could be board games or going on a walk or going on a hike, but like just not sitting down like made it a memory that like I love now. So some of the highlights, we went to DC all the time. So going over and seeing like the Lincoln Memorial, seeing the, the reflection pool, and the, what's it called? What's that? What's this, like that steeple thing? I'm drawing a blank.
The World War II Memorial?
Well, that too, yeah. It's basically in between.
Washington Monument?
Yeah, the monument, yeah.
There you go.
So that was really fun, just renting scooters and segwaying, and I don't know, just basically quality time with the team was like my most favorite thing. So doing that, but also playing games with the team, both of those were equally as important and fun to me, because it just all had the same like end product of like having fun with my team.
Yeah.
So thinking about it, there's not like crazy things that stuck out. It was just the summer as a whole. And I could try to find little things, but they all like added up to be like the one giant thing of having a fun summer.
Well, I remember that super small, really expensive house. I rented it in DC, and I had you and your team over. And we had dinner and we played games, dude. And like I could just feel like it was like you guys had each other's back, man. Whether it's the games, like there's the fun competition, but you could tell like there's sincere like love for that group you guys have for each other, you know? And like that for me, I think is one of the many keys to your success this summer. Is like it's very easy. I've seen in the past where, you know, as a leader, people perform in different ways, right? Like people tick in different areas. I've been guilty of sometimes causing too much competition within a team where, you know, people start to resent each other, and you had a lot of high performing reps on your team, but I didn't sense any resentment or any negative feelings they had towards each other. Like you guys are really good at directing that towards other teams and other competitors. But I know you guys did a really good job of fostering competition between ourselves. And I think that for anybody that's able to watch this, I think that's one of the many things you could look forward to working with Tanner Davenport is like, you're going to be surrounded by a group of guys that care about you. They're going to have a ton of fun, but also like you for sure pushed each other really, really hard over the course of the summer.
Yeah. I think so. One of the things that I made a goal of doing is like going over the first creation with my guys as well too, because I think if they have like what they want to achieve as like their personal goals at the forefront of their mind, then it makes it really easy to not have like envy towards people when like they're doing better than them as well too, right? Because there's times like I had people pass me and I passed other people as well. I didn't feel any different. Like I didn't feel pride or like even like envy, or I didn't feel pride when I passed someone or like envy when I like didn't hit someone, because you knew when you go into the office the next day, they weren't gonna like boast about it. They weren't gonna like put on a scene as well, because everyone knew like how hard of a job it was, and they were all emotionally intelligent enough to be like, this just not, there's no long-term benefit of me doing that as well. So that in retrospect turned into like when people had good days, everybody was cheering them on. If I had 0 or I had 1 or anyone, whatever it may be, and someone had 9, it didn't really matter. If anything, it just put me in perspective of like, not only can they go and sell so I can go and sell, but also made it fun of like, dude, I'm super happy this guy is like doing really, really good. Like Mason, my cousin, I'm really glad that he's doing really good right now. If it was someone I didn't like I put on a front, and in reality, I'm like, dude, this guy, like, I can't stand. I'm like, I want to beat him, but just because I don't like him, because I think that happens a lot with some people, like, I would not feel good ever going out and knocking and looking at the leaderboards. And so like setting that culture up before the summer happens of like, we're here to lift each other up, but also we're here to become a better version of ourselves. I think typically it just falls into place where people are just a lot more happy with other people's success rather than like putting people down. That's just what I found.
Yeah,
so,
it worked really, really well, man.
Yeah,
really
I loved
well.
it.
And another conversation like I have fun talking about is over the course of recruiting in the preseason as well, there's lots of concerns that come up with people that are particularly married, right? Like, for sure, like this job is a sacrifice, and for sure this job's hard. And like a common objective coming out is like, well, I don't want to spend that much time away from my spouse, or like guys maybe have a girlfriend or in the engagement process, right? But I've noticed every one of my top performing reps have been married.
Yeah.
I feel like it's this myth out there, like it's way easier if I'm single and I'm alone and I can just focus on me. Like when in reality, like the guys I've seen do the best have had amazing supportive spouses. So I guess for anyone that's married or is about to be married or considering marriage over the course of the summer, what advice would you give them?
So the first thing that comes to my mind is like in the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, like Stephen Covey talks a lot about like the difference of independence and interdependence. And I think like the world in general now thinks independence is like the strongest thing to be. When in reality, it's not. If like you don't have to, you know, if I have my wife, I have Kylie, and I don't have to like rely on her for everything, but I choose to because it's going to empower us both, it makes it way more motivating in every single way. So 1, you perform better. 2, your goals are in sync. So it's a lot more motivating to go and do anything during the summer for budgeting, for whatever it may be. So making sure that you guys have a first creation together and it's your both decisions to go out and sell, it makes it a lot easier on those hard days to be like, I'm here for a reason. Like my wife's here for a reason, rather than like, man, I'm having a hard day. Like my wife doesn't want to be out here as well. You start giving yourself limiting beliefs and excuses of like why you're not doing good, which in result, like it just tanks you forever. And it's hard to get out of that rut. So that's the number one thing I would say.
Well, Kylie is remarkable. I've met her. I think wives are for sure like the unsung heroes, because we have like these amazing top performing reps. You guys get the cool trips, you get all the awards, but like, you know, once again, behind the scenes, like every one of my top performing reps was married, you know, and for anybody to choose to do something great or to be really successful, like I think there's for sure going to need to be some sacrifice, right? Would you mind talking about maybe some of the sacrifice that you and Kylie have made and why that was worth it? So, if it wasn't, we won't share it on this podcast.
Yeah, we'll cut it out. So number one thing, so she graduated with like a master esthetician degree as well too, so she could pursue that as well. With the summer, she hasn't, because I mean, one, she realized like the benefit of me doing this and like the ROI we would return if she like supports me and she's doing other things on the side. 'Cause she's working for Moxie too. So it's nice to get to know like the sales reps, like be a presence in the office too. I can introduce her to my guys, things like that. But yeah, like she's put a lot on the line for me, and like I would like to say I've done the same for her, but probably not as much as she's done for me as well. It's kind of like, at first I almost drug her along and we both agreed to it, but it was more of, we don't know what else to do. Like I'd rather just have a fun time, because it's kind of a fun thing with the wives to just go and do things together. They go on a bunch of trips. They go to the beach all the time. It's like, so it's not like but it's not easy, right? Like it's still hard for them because they still have to go through like the mental challenge of like not seeing us a ton during the summer. But I think that sacrifice too is like,
well, I mean, it's a sacrifice of time, right? Like,
which is huge.
I mean, Kylie's put on pause a potential career, right? And like potential education. And I see that a lot. It's like, it's not only like, is it the, you know, traveling across the summer that they're sacrificing, you know, but like for a lot of them, they're putting off a lot of, you know, I'd say call it maybe some self-interest, you know, for the greater good of the marriage.
Well, and mental stuff is like all relative too, right? Like me going out and like knocking on doors, like mentally is extremely hard, but also if there's times where there's like, if my wife's sitting at the apartment, she's doing nothing, like that could completely be equally as hard as well. So it puts responsibility on me, just like with my guys, right? Like setting expectations, like I'm planning things, I'm trying to help her with whatever it may be, whatever she wants to go and do as well. Because if that tanks and she doesn't feel like she's having fun and doesn't feel comfortable, then I don't sell well. I don't want to come back because she's going through living heck trying to be out there in the summer supporting me. Yeah. So then it turns in from a win-win if I plan right and execute right to a lose-lose, which isn't good for literally anybody ever. No. So.
And just a little bit on that, man, like just the mutual sacrifice and goals together. You know, on the surface, it looks like you have a good marriage. Yeah. What did you do over the course of the summer? Because this job, it is a huge time commitment, man. So what are some things you did over the course of the summer to maintain that relationship with your wife?
So I'm not going to lie and say I did it really, really well. Like that's something I've been working on for this next year as well. So some things I did do good is I was like my communication is key. So like being able to communicate with her, whether it's like going early to the office, not right then and there. So if you want to get in a fight with like your spouse, you tell them like right when you're about to do something, what you're going to go and do. That's not communication. That's just like improper planning. So day before, like making sure that she's involved with what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go, when I'm going to come back, whatever it may be. But again, like planning out the summer with her was key as well. She understands like how crazy this job is. If there's times I'm planning to go to the office at 11, I have to go at 8 because things pop up. If you're not setting those expectations, being clear with the person, it's like being clear with the customer. If you're like kind of beating around the bush and you're not like being honest with them about it, it's just not going to end up well. So making a plan, making goals like before the summer happens, kind of like preparing yourself with reps of like what could happen, preparing yourself like with your wife of what could happen as well that would like take time away from us is completely huge and crucial. But I do need to plan more date nights is what I realized too. So I need to repent and do that for this next summer. So you can hold me accountable next year for that. See if I do okay.
I will hold you accountable for that. Love holding T-Davy accountable. That's really awesome. And like, I think you talked about a little bit on there too about making and keeping commitments, but I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on like selling and recruiting with integrity. Jason Walton describes it, I think, perfectly when he calls it competing against the Iron Man suit. You know, like we'll be out there and we'll be talking to some reps and they're like, our average rep did whatever. Yeah. And all of a sudden they'd meet with their competitor like, oh, we did 10 more than that. And, you know, our average rep bought 15 rental homes. Like, you know, like it's kind of that escalation. And for us, like my thing, I feel like every year we try to do is really recruit with integrity and we try to sell with integrity. So like, what does recruiting with integrity mean to you?
It's kind of actually weird to think about it too, because I feel like, which is good, because I think it's so ingrained in our culture to only recruit with integrity. It's kind of hard to like not, I guess, because I don't see any benefits from it. So like I could choose to inflate numbers. I could choose to do all these different things as well too. But in reality, like they're buying the vision from you. So if you're not selling the vision honestly, and if you're like making up all these different things along the way to make you sound better, one, people are going to see right through it because people aren't idiots, especially people that choose to do this job, like are typically really emotionally intelligent and they understand like when someone's BSing them or not. If not, then
truth's going to come out eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So with that said, one, they like recruiting with integrity benefit to you in the sense of you gain more respect. Like people respect you a lot more if like they know that everything you say is honest. If you have one slip up and you're not honest in those different things too, like why would they want to stay with you throughout the entire summer? Like let alone even like just sign on to your team. I wouldn't honestly. Like if you interview me and you were lying like in any case, like you can be confident and seem like you know everything you're doing as well. But if you lie, and no matter how confident you are, like it's a matter of time before people find out.
Get discovered.
Yeah. And then what if I tell John Doe about it as well too? And like, he's like, oh yeah, like now that you mention it, like all these things don't really make sense. So at the end of the day, the whole program is to help you become a better version of yourself. So if you're not living that with selling or recruiting, then one, you'll get weeded out extremely quickly, but you'll realize really quickly as well that you don't fit in here at all, because you'll feel very uncomfortable really, really quickly knowing that all these guys are doing things right and you're the only guy doing things wrong. So that's not what I want.
It's not what I want either, man. and the goal for me and for you, and I think for all of our leadership, is to really find people that value integrity and really see the integrity that we try to bring to the table and like ways that we can improve it and do it better as an organization. And I think one of the things that really stands out and something I'm really trying to highlight, like my theme this year for everyone that works with me, is like as I shared with you in Hawaii, like I'm really hitting up making and keeping commitments hard this year. I think of anywhere I've fallen short in goals, which was quite a few. When I look at my leadership, that did really, really well. And when I look at everyone that I got to work with, the reason people did really, really well was their commitment. And the reason people fell short was a lack of commitment. And I think for you, like your commitment to not burn out, like that took a lot of mental discipline, a lot of mental focus, and a lot of emotional resilience to go do that. And so I guess for you, like, what does it mean when you make a commitment and how do you follow through?
So the first part, like, I guess with like the burnout in the sense too, my second year and first year, it was a goal to not burn out, which ultimately didn't work because burning out is like controllable. So if you start making goals that are controllable, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure as well. So for me, like even last year, our I don't know if you remember, like you do, our director of sale, like accountability pictures in the morning as well too.
Yeah, I remember that.
So one, making it fun is like a night and day difference. If you like actually enjoy doing it, like there's times I have diet plans, I commit to them as well, but I absolutely hate it. And I don't even understand the benefit from it as well. It makes it really easy to stop doing that. So when I'm looking at a commitment, one is beginning with the end in mind. Like, why am I doing this? Like, what's it going to help me fulfill? If I truly understand like that it's actually going to go and do that, and the result from that is actually going to benefit me as well, it makes it really, really, really easy to make and keep commitments too. So one, understanding like why you're doing it, but then two, having fun. Like those pictures were kind of, I wouldn't say they're dumb.
So as a reference, we all made morning routines over the course of the preseason last year, and we had to take pictures of ourselves and send it in at the time that we woke up in the morning.
Like right away.
So like really, really, really good pictures of us were really posted.
Yeah, I realized
super early in the morning.
I realized also too that I wasn't as strong as I thought I was when like you're posting like things at 4:30 in the morning as well, and you just look wide awake. Yeah. And it's like 7 for me, and I'm just like deaf. But I think making it fun too, like having an aspect of making it fun, like is a game changer too. Because it builds like for you and I or whoever it may be, like it built people closer together. Like seeing that we're all human, and whether if we make a mistake or not, it doesn't really matter because you own it and you go and fix it as well. Like that's what the point of commitments are. But too, like having fun with it makes like a night and day difference of like having like going over and doing it. If you can wake up and be like, dude, like let's see how many like stupid pictures are on like this message, and you look at it, you're like, dang, they are ugly in the morning too.
Except for me.
Yeah, except for you as well too. You're like button up shirt,
ready to roll.
Yeah, it makes it way more fun to go and do it as well, and you're just like you become the average of your 5 closest friends, right? So if you're doing things that they're doing, like you tend to like start doing everything together, and then it just becomes like one like unified circle of fun throughout the entire time. That's the off season for me last year. That's why I love it so much. Is it's just fun in every single way. Like we could be meeting, or we could be doing this, or we could be taking pictures. It doesn't really matter. It usually always ends out fun, which is weird because there's no reason why it should, but it's just because I feel so comfortable with everybody, and I love everyone I'm surrounded with. It just makes it easier to keep your word as well. So,
which is why I think it's really important. Like as we're recruiting, as we're meeting different reps, right? Like for me, like I don't make a ton of commitments. I make my commitments very carefully, but the commitments I make, I keep. And like one of the things I'm really trying to communicate this year with everyone we get to work with is like commitments are freedom. Like you look at the people that are the most committed at their job, at their craft, at their marriage, their organization, their personal fitness, whatever it is, like those people have the most freedom and have like the most happiness. And I really liked how you brought up like keeping commitments as a group, right? Around people that are going to push you. Like I know for a fact, anybody that signs to work with you, like they're going to have a lot of fun, but they're going to be pushed very hard to do things that are difficult and outside of their comfort zone. They're going to help them grow. And it's a lot more fun to do it with people that are like-minded and people that you really appreciate.
It is. And at the same time as well too, like it sounds bad looking back on it now. I'm grateful. Like I don't have regrets of not doing, like not burning. I don't have any regrets of burning out my first couple of years because now it's like a sunk cost. It's gone, and I learned from it. If I didn't learn from it, then it would be a different story, obviously. But like going from that situation where if people are going through things during the summer and like they're failing on keeping their commitments, I can genuinely say I've been there and I've done that, and this is what has worked for me in this exact situation for you. Try it out. If you're having fun with it, like awesome. I'll keep you accountable as well. Blah 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 blah. And it just makes it like a night and day difference as well when you can actually relate to these people too. But with that said as well, what were the commitments? I was going to say something about, what were you saying? You were saying something about, I forgot.
It was like highly intelligent.
Yeah, it's highly intelligent
super
too.
Inspired.
Whatever I was going to say probably wasn't, so it's okay.
I'll lead you into my next question.
Okay.
All right. So speaking of commitments, man, For anyone that chooses to work with you, what commitments are you willing to make to them?
What commitments am I willing to make to my guys that sign on to?
Yeah, anyone that signs on with you, what's one thing they can be like, Tanner Davenport, I know you're going to do this.
So with the people, and this will continue with the reps that I have as well too, my commitment is, one, to help them become a better version of themselves as well. It is in their ball court, but for me, because I know the roadmap of how to get there, I am committed to making that happen, or they're probably going to quit. Either they get weeded out because they don't want to do it in reality, or they do it, and my commitments to help them do that actually work, because they do if they choose to.
They do work.
The second thing though too is just like my commitment, also my goal, but also like a commitment is just being ready, available in every single way for my guys. Like I don't like keeping my phone. I have do not disturb on like for most of the day, but at nighttime I typically take it off as well, because if that one time that there's a call that comes in, there's something that needs to be done as well, I want to say like that I actually am prepared to go and do it and help them with whatever it may be. Because if I say this and I don't follow up with that, then it looks good, but it doesn't yield any fruits for me, or for them, because they realize, wow, he's a lot of talk, but he doesn't really do much too. And those are my main ones. Like the other commitment I would say is I'm just committed to help them become a better salesman than I am, because I've gone through the suck and I've gone through like all the hard things to get to that point as well too. So I'm committed to teach them everything that I know about sales and about recruiting as well. And hopefully they end up doing a lot better than me, because they don't have to make the mistakes that I did. Kind of like what you do and teach with us. You're like, I spent years doing this way. Don't do this, because now I'm in a way better position, but I wish I knew that before. But you went through the suck for us, and I want to go through
volumes
it for them.
of failure. Volumes and volumes of failure.
But you can't succeed without the failure. So I'm preparing for it.
It's the only way I can be successful from here on out, right? And then I guess kind of sitting on the other end of the table, what commitments do you expect of a rep? Like for a rep to sign on and work with Tanner Davenport, what expectations or commitments do you expect from them? So
one, I expect them to be just as committed as I am, and I don't expect them to be more committed as well. So as like a leader, if I'm asking them and I have these expectations for them to commit to being on time, you better believe that I better be on time, if not like 5-10 minutes early, or there's no reason and no way that I should hold them accountable for doing that same thing too. So one, with that, I'm committed more than they are. Like that's my commitment, is I'm going to be on doing that. So if someone's on my team, we have a meeting, we agree upon it as well too, I expect you to be on time. Unless there's a crazy emergency, I expect you to let me know if things are going to be running late as well. My big thing too is I don't like to commit people to do things. I want them to commit themselves, because I feel like if you commit me to do something, then it doesn't come from the heart for me, and it doesn't make me motivated for it. So if you lead me to make a commitment that I feel strong about, then I'm going to go and do it even more. But they need to believe that if they make a commitment to go and do something, especially if it revolves like around like me and my time as well, that is acted upon. Because if not, it's just I'm basically teaching them to be a failure at life, because they're not keeping their word, which ultimately is the biggest thing that people learn from this job. Is if you don't keep your word, then you're not going to go that many places.
You're not going to go. I mean, you won't go up.
Maybe McDonald's or something, but for the most part,
hey, it's a Fortune 500 company.
It is.
There's opportunity there.
Yeah, there is a lot of opportunity.
I guess looking over this past summer, you had a ton of accomplishments, man. Like, what are you most personally proud of?
No, I think it's hard. It's hard because I feel like I didn't really focus on me at all for the summer. At least I tried not to. And so, like, looking back on it, I think I'm just proud that I was able to like increase like exponentially each month, because I feel like that was something that I had a goal of doing as well. But two, I feel like I'm proud of myself for like using all the resources that I had as well too. Because I think a lot of times people don't, and they try to do it by themselves, and it's not the best way to do it in this job specifically.
Yeah.
So like I called you, I called Matt, I called Tanner as well too. And I use the resources that I have appropriately, and I wasn't just abusing it, because I think then you never learn, or you tell me to suck it up and go knock doors and then come back to me when I have something real to argue.
Exactly.
So I think looking back on it though, like incrementally increasing like my sales and production, and also like using the resources that I had like efficiently, that was the biggest thing looking back that I was extremely proud of.
What are you looking to improve upon this next year? What do you want to do better?
Everything. So I want to increase my personal sales. So I would like to hit, my goal is $450,000 in revenue for this upcoming year as well. my retention for like the reps that I have as well too, I want that to be like triple. I want to have around 90% retention from people that I signed to people that finish the summer. Sorry, people that come out to the summer finish.
For the record, that would be less because you had 100% this year.
Correct. So let me rephrase.
No, I'm okay with 90%. That's really good because I know the volume's about to freaking kick up.
Exactly. So that's the thing as well, right? If you have like a 1 or 2 day, typically if you're having like 1 or 2 a day as well, like you should be expecting some cancellations as well if you're pushing it hard.
Yeah.
Because 1 to 2, you're not going to have cancellations for the most part, but 5 to 6, if you had 1, I'll take that 1 cancellation every day as well. So my goal is to, 1, increase my team by 5 times as well. I'd like to do that. And I like to have so many that I do have to have a retention, not problem, but at least some sort of makeup for that. So those are my 2 number, or I guess my number 1, my number 2 things. Well, 450,000 revenue, and get to the point where retention starts becoming on my mind a lot more because of how many people I have on the team as well that want to go.
Good problems.
Yeah, good problems. Yeah.
I want good problems too, man. And what I really like too is like you're just a super selfless leader. I think that is one of the reasons why you did so well. So like, I guess like, what are a few things you learned about leadership this past summer that you feel like can help you a lot this upcoming year?
Biggest things I learned about leadership are I feel like going into problems or going into experiences like expecting like nothing from it, and in the sense of that too, like expecting that you have to own every single aspect of the job and of the situation as well. So what I mean by that as well too is when you leadership, I kind of want to expect that you won't do anything for me, and Matt won't do anything for me, Tanner won't do anything for me.
I would love that expectation.
And I'm agreeing that as well. So, but in that sense too, is if I expect that, then anything that you do is a cherry on top. But if I don't own it and I rely on you, Matt, Tanner, to do certain things for me, it's 1, not going to help me learn anything. 2, you're going to be doing the work for me, which why would you pay me and hire me to do something that you're doing yourself?
Yeah.
And it makes the question of like, why me, like extremely blurry, because like, why me? Like, I'm really good at delegating things. Like, I'm really good at, having other people do my work for me as well too, like better than anybody. Like, that makes no sense. No one wants to follow a person that has something like that as well.
Yeah, that can hurt a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So with leadership, that's the biggest thing I would say I learned is the ownership principle too, because I'm still trying to learn it, and I think everybody is. But if you don't, then you're you're setting yourself up for failure as well in the long term. Yeah,
I totally agree, man. I've always found when you own the result 100%, like that's what gives you the power to move forward. I think that's something that you've done really well is you've owned your burnout, you've owned your results, you've owned your recruiting. And I think that's why this is going to lead into like your best recruiting and your best sales year as well. Kind of looking forward to this next year, man. What are you most excited about?
For like the summer or just for like now?
Recruiting and the summer, both.
I just love recruiting. I love sharing the vision with people. And like now that I have like a solid foundation, you could say, of like everything about Moxie, it just makes so much sense. So it's not like you're pitching people anymore. You're just sharing your experience with them and basically like letting them know this probably is in your best interest, honestly, unless you have something crazy going on as well too. Like, let me show you what I mean by that. So that's the number 1 thing I'm excited for this off season. I'm also just excited to be around people that like I appreciate and love. So like being around like you and Matt and Tanner and all the other people on my team, like Mason and my brother. When you're surrounded by those kind of people that like enjoy winning and are sharks and also like have integrity while doing it, you start to become an unstoppable force as well too, like with a company, but also just like as an individual. Yeah. So.
Well, I guess besides the advice of they should sell for you, there's going to be a lot of reps. They're going to be looking around at different kinds of leadership, different kinds of companies, different kinds of culture. And I think what's fascinating now, especially, like to the decade or more since I got in this, there's so much access to information out there, man. So what advice would you give? We'll say you do a rep that's looking at getting into door-to-door sales as he's kind of looking at his different options.
I would say 1, like which company, which person is going to help you become the best version of yourself. Because at the end of the day, you die, people are talking about you at your funeral, the Stephen Covey analogy as well. Are they going to be saying like, oh, he's chased money. Like he chased a lot of money. He didn't do the best things. Like a customer of yours comes to your funeral. Like, he kind of beat around the bush and lied about this one part too, but he was good rather than that. Like, how crappy would that feel if you had something like that? So
the worst, man.
Yeah, I can't imagine. So with that said, like making sure that you know what you want and knowing what your like intentions are and like what is best for you. Because then you can go into any situation as well too and feel out, is it A, is it B, is it C, whatever it may be, who's going to help me get to the point where I want to go as well too. And I'm 100% certain that not only Moxie, but like I'm committed to making that work for them, and we have all the tools necessary to go and do it.
Dude, I love that. So the answer is still sell for you. Good.
It won't change.
And then kind of like coming back to that, I think maybe the question like we'll end on is like, this job is super challenging, super rewarding. I know the amount of money you made. It was a lot. I think it'd be really easy for people who've been on as long as you've done it, you know, for a few years, built a successful team or two, you know, made, you know, well over 6 figures over the course of the summer. I think it'd be very easy to choose to do something else. So like, why do you keep coming back?
It's the same thing of what I said before of just like, it's helping me become a better version of myself in every way. So yeah, the money is there, but for me, like, and I tell this to like my guys, but also like you or Tanner, like for me, I'm committed to Moxie long-term. So the money now like doesn't really mean as much. It's a good indication of how I'm doing for like a certain aspect of the job.
Sure.
But like when I'm able to go and even do something as simple as like, taking a cold shower becomes easier, right? Or going to the gym earlier, waking up earlier, like getting out to area on time. When those things start to become easier, you start to realize that like it's actually molding you into the best version of yourself as well. So I go and I look at like what my different goals, what my different plans are, like my roles in life. And if it's not helping me become closer to that, then I will stop Moxie. But until that point, which I don't think there will be a point with that, unless
I'll never let you
the second coming comes. Yeah, exactly. It just there's nothing else I'd rather do. So
that's awesome, man. And maybe another question I would love to ask is like, selling goes what, 11 a day?
Say again. Like
what was your best revenue day? 11K. There aren't like too many days where it just feels like everything is firing and everything is clicking. And I could probably say on that 11K a day, there's probably a lot of things that were going right, man. Yeah. Describe that feeling for people that haven't been able to have that feeling yet. Well, what's it like just have everything click and everything move and everything go well?
Well, here's the thing. I actually kind of, my commitment also during the summer was to kind of train my mind to have extremely low or extremely normal lows and extremely normal highs. So like going out to area, I listen to super boring. I like country, but extremely boring country music to like keep my dopamine levels at a very, very like minuscule level. And so even when I got a sale, I'm at 0 sales, right? Go to the next one. If I have a really hard door slam as well too, it's like, man, like hope that day goes by better. Get to the next door as fast as possible. So in honesty, like the 11K day, there was days that I felt like the same or better that I got less, but it was because like I was focused on like my commitments and like working hard. Like that was the thing I was focused on. And that 11K day was just a byproduct of doing that, which is, it didn't happen every time.
That's amazing, man.
But having 2 or 3 felt the same as those days a lot of the times too, if I had those, because it was just like, I'm committed to working hard and my success and dopamine comes from like the commitments, like me fulfilling my commitments. So whatever it was, 1K, 12K as well, like I'm happy at the end of the day if I fulfill my commitments and whatever those revenue goals were that I had, I never focus on them because they're just a byproduct of me working hard. The only way to hit those is working hard for me personally and for everyone in general, unless you're like insanely talented or just lucky as all can be in one day.
Yeah.
So focus on those things too, like ultimately like yielded those results and I was happy with it. So
thanks for sharing that, man. And I would like to end with my strong endorsement for anybody that's looking at getting into the door-to-door sales, anybody that's looking at Moxie. Tanner Davenport has produced one of the greatest cultures like I've ever seen in my decade of doing this. Like he really is committed to his reps and like he leads from the front. He's out there selling every single day. He's always doing performance reviews. He's making time for people on the doors, probably more than I would like. I know there's this rule I put in where leaders can't talk to anybody after 4 o'clock. That may have been broken a couple of times. Maybe a few. But it's very few I've seen leaders like as committed to their culture and as committed to the reps and have seen so much success that from the top performers to the rep performers that didn't quite have the summer we were hoping they were going to have to sign on just like that, I think speaks volume for you, man. And I'm really excited for what you're going to do this year.
I'm excited too. I appreciate you.
Love you, man.
Love you.